Hello, and welcome back to Storytime with Eric Zimmer. Last time we read the first book of the Frog and Toad series, called Frog and Toad Are Friends. Well, now we have the next book, the second book in the series from 1972. Frog and Toad Together by Arnold Lobel. 5 more wonderful stories about flowers, cookies, bravery, dreams, and most of all, friendship between 2 amphibians. I think this was me and my brother's favorite Frog and Toad book growing up. Anyways, you ready? Alright, let's begin. Story number 1. A list. One morning, Toad sat in bed. "I've many things to do," he said. "I'll write them all down on a list so that I can remember them." Toad wrote on a piece of paper a list of things to do today. Then he wrote, "Wake up." "I've done that," said Toad, obviously, and he crossed out, "Wake up." Toad wrote other things on the paper. 10 things on the list. A list of things to do today. 1. Wake up. 2. Eat breakfast. 3. Get dressed. 4. Go to Frog's house. 5. Take walk with Frog. 6. Eat lunch. 7. Take a nap. 8. Play games with Frog. 9. Eat supper. And 10. Go to sleep. "There," said Toad. "Now my day's all written down." He got out of bed and had something to eat. Then Toad crossed out, "Eat breakfast." Toad took his clothes out of the closet and put them on. Then he crossed out, "Get dressed." Toad put the list in his pocket. He opened the door and walked out into the morning light. Soon Toad was at Frog's front door. He took the list from his pocket and crossed out, "Go to Frog's house." Toad knocked at the door. "Hello," said Frog. Look at my list of things to do," said Toad. "Oh," said Frog. "That is very nice." Toad said, "My list tells me that we'll go for a walk." "All right," said Frog. "I'm ready." Seems like their plans come together. Frog and Toad went on a long walk. Then Toad took the list from his pocket again. He crossed out, "Take a walk with Frog." Just then there was a strong gust of wind. It blew the list out of Toad's hand. The list blew high up into the air. "Help!" cried Toad. "My list is blowing away. What will I do without my list?" Hurry, said Frog. "We'll run and catch it." "No," shouted Toad. "I can't do that." "Why not?" asked Frog. "Because," wailed Toad, "running after the list is not one of the things I wrote on my list of things to do." "You don't have to follow the entire list. You gotta catch the list, don't you?" Frog ran after the list. He ran over hills and swamps, but the list blew on and on. At last Frog came back to Toad. "I'm sorry," gasped Frog. "I couldn't catch your list." "Blah," said Toad. "I can't remember any of the things that were on my list of things to do. I'll just have to sit here and do nothing," said Toad. "I do. I remember some of the other things. It was eat lunch, take a nap, play games with Frog, eat supper, and then go to sleep." So they skipped 2 meals doing nothing. Toad sat down and did nothing. Frog sat with him. After a long time, Frog said, "Toad, it's getting dark. We should be going to sleep now." "Go to sleep," shouted Toad. "That was the last thing on my list." Toad wrote on the ground with a stick, "Go to sleep." Then he crossed out, "Go to sleep." "There," said Toad. "Now my day is all crossed out." "I'm glad," said Frog. Then Frog and Toad went right to sleep. Aww. Story number 2. The Garden. Frog was in his garden. Toad came walking by. "What a fine garden you have, Frog," he said. "Yes," said Frog, "it is very nice, but it was hard work." "I wish I had a garden," said Toad. "Here's some flower seeds. Plant them in the ground," said Frog, "and soon you'll have a garden." "How soon?" asked Toad. "Quite soon," said Frog. "That is a nice garden." Which is saying something because there aren't too many colors used in these books. Not that that's a bad thing, it's just something I've noticed. Toad ran home. He planted the flower seeds. "Now, seeds," said Toad, "start growing." Toad walked up and down a few times. The seeds did not start to grow. Toad put his head close to the ground and said loudly, "Now, seeds, start growing." Toad looked at the ground again. The seeds did not start to grow. Toad put his head very close to the ground and shouted, "Now, seeds, start growing!" Frog came running up the path. "What's all this noise?" he asked. "My seeds won't grow," said Toad. "You're shouting too much," said Frog. "These poor seeds are afraid to grow." "My seeds are afraid to grow?" asked Toad. "Of course," said Frog. "Leave them alone for a few days. Let the sun shine on them. Let the rain fall on them. Soon your seeds will start to grow." Or, as another simple way to put it, let nature take its course. That night, Toad looked out his window. "Drat," said Toad, "my seeds have not started to grow. They must be afraid of the dark." Toad went out into his garden with some candles. This is something George Harrison would do. He used to spend hours in his garden. I've seen pictures. "I'll read these seeds a story," said Toad. "Then they won't be afraid." Toad read a long story to his seeds. All the next day, Toad sang songs to his seeds. And all the next day, Toad read poems to his seeds. And all the next day, Toad played music for his seeds. Toad looked at the ground. The seeds still did not start to grow. "What shall I do?" cried Toad. "These must be the most frightened seeds in the whole world." Then Toad felt very tired, and he fell asleep. "Toad! Toad, wake up!" said Frog. "Look at your garden." Toad looked at his garden. Little green plants were coming up out of the ground. "At last," shouted Toad, "my seeds have stopped being afraid to grow." "And now you will have a nice garden too," said Frog. "Yes," said Toad, "but you were right, Frog. It was very hard work." And with hard work comes great rewards. Story number 3. Cookies. Toad baked some cookies. "These cookies smell very good," said Toad. He ate one. "And they taste even better," he said. Toad ran to Frog's house. "Frog! Frog!" cried Toad. "Taste these cookies that I've made." Frog ate one of the cookies. "These are the best cookies I've ever eaten," said Frog. Frog and Toad ate many cookies, one after another. "You know, Toad," said Frog, with his mouth full, "I think we should stop eating. We'll soon be sick." "You're right," said Toad. "Let us eat one last cookie, and then we'll stop." Frog and Toad ate one last cookie. There were many cookies still left in the bowl. "Frog," said Toad, "let us eat one very last cookie, and then we'll stop." Frog and Toad ate one very last cookie. "We must stop eating," cried Toad as he ate another. "Yes," said Frog, reaching for a cookie. "We need willpower." "What is willpower?" asked Toad. "Willpower is trying hard not to do something that you really want to do," said Frog. "You mean like trying not to eat all these cookies?" asked Toad. "Right," said Frog. Frog put the cookies in a box. "There," he said. "Now we won't eat any more cookies." "But we can open the box," said Toad. "That is true," said Frog. Frog tied some string around the box. "There," he said. "Now we won't eat any more cookies." "But we can cut the string and open the box," said Toad. "That is true," said Frog. Frog got a ladder. He put the box up on a high shelf. "There," said Frog. "Now we won't eat any more cookies." "But we can climb the ladder and take the box down from the shelf and cut the string and open the box," said Toad. "That is true," said Frog. Not so easy, huh? Frog climbed to the ladder and took the box down from the shelf. He cut the string and opened the box. Frog took the box outside. He shouted in a loud voice, "Hey, birds! Here are cookies!" Birds came from everywhere. They picked up all the cookies in their beaks and flew away. "Now we have no more cookies to eat," said Toad sadly. "Not even one." "Yes," said Frog, "but we have lots and lots of willpower." "You may keep it all, Frog," said Toad. "I'm going home now to bake a cake." Story number 4. Dragons and Giants. Frog and Toad were reading a book together. "The people in this book are brave," said Toad. "They fight dragons and giants. They're never afraid." "I wonder if we're brave," said Frog. Frog and Toad looked into a mirror. "We look brave," said Frog. "Yes, but are we?" asked Toad. Frog and Toad went outside. "We can try to climb this mountain," said Frog. "That should tell us if we're brave." Frog went leaping over rocks, and Toad came puffing up behind them. They came to a dark cave. A big snake came out of the cave. "Hello, Lunch," said the snake when he saw Frog and Toad. He opened his wide mouth. Frog and Toad jumped away. Toad was shaking. "I am not afraid," he cried. "Oh, really?" They climbed together and they heard a loud noise. Many large stones were rolling down the mountain. "It's an avalanche!" cried Toad. Frog and Toad jumped away. Frog was trembling. "I'm not afraid," he shouted. "Yeah, right." They came to the top of the mountain. The shadow of a hawk fell over them. Frog and Toad jumped under a rock. The hawk flew away. "We're not afraid!" screamed Frog and Toad at the same time. Then they ran down the mountain very fast. They ran past the place where they saw the avalanche. They ran past the place where they saw